first words to me was, "Don't die on me now."
Discrimination simply because she holds a different password than I have.
Tried to give his mom a hug. She was like, "No, no, 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 no."
I don't think that would have been possible had I been immediately forced to accept that part of the Xhosa culture.
My name is Asi. Actually, it's Asithandile, but a lot of people call me Asi. And
Well, my name is Dominic, and a lot of people call me too. So where did we meet? We both travel a lot. During that time, we were actually both in China. So pretty crazy because, I'm from a small town in the Netherlands. Asi is from a small town in South Africa. She was studying abroad, doing her MBA.
he was trying to go to China with a lot of people, and all of them kind of said, "No, we can't join on this trip." And very last minute, Doe decided, "You know what, I'm going to travel by myself." And I'm so glad he did. I'm so glad he did.
So I decided to go, book my flight that night. Luckily, I had a visa on arrival for 5 days. And during those 5 days, I met the love of my life.
I was calling him to China for sure.
Yeah, we met, we hit it off. I told her I would come back. She, of course, thought I was lying, but I did. And that is now 7 years ago. Immediately from the start, I think there was just a spark because conversations, just flowed from one thing to the next. We just realized, that we have many things in common,
And the only reason I would say we separated was because this guy wanted to go watch something called Chinese opera. And immediately I was like, I'm not going to join you, but I can support you by trying to help you get a discount for the show. Because I lived there, I had all the apps and I had access to whatever discounts.
And I just remembered she immediately impressed me, because not only did she speak Chinese, she was willing to actually help us, even though we were still a stranger. She actually made the payment, for the tickets. I was just immediately in love with her, I would say. Just right from the start, it was just only good things. And yeah, it's been really nice.
I was across the street and I had to cross to meet him on the other side. There was a lot of tuk-tuks moving in China, and I almost got hit by one as I was moving across towards him. And the first words that Dominic has ever said to me was, "Hey, be careful, don't die on me now." And I thought, okay, I need to try stay alive, And yeah, I thought he looked extremely handsome. I'd already seen what he looked like in the pictures, and I thought, yeah, even better than the pictures. One thing about Doe has been, I think since the day I met him, he is so caring, and for him, it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. If he sees somebody in need, he's going to be the first guy to stop whatever he's doing and go and help them. He does this everywhere we go, from China to, Butterworth, Etofimvaba, wherever we've been, my man is just like, how can I make the world a better place? And I think obviously for myself too, a question that Doe has always asked me, which I now also kind of find myself asking, is how can I make your life better? A spirit of stewardship that he has is just insane for me, and he doesn't stop. And it's not about this person is going to do this for me. And so I just felt like from the first day I met him that his heart is in the right place. And that's all I was really, I would say, looking for when it comes to love. Having a person that is good and good to everyone.
So what did I like about her? I definitely like the outside package. She's even prettier in person. I just immediately got very impressed with the way she handles life, right? She was already fluent in Chinese. She was actually working as a TV hostess at that time. She was traveling a lot, something, which I've always adored doing in life. She really cared about family, something which is also very important to me. So it just immediately felt like home. I think that is the best way to explain it. The more I got introduced with her culture and, as I said, and her family and, all of the rituals which they have, the more I liked it. The more I was like, "Ooh, this is exciting!" She's taking me to to Umgidi. She's taking me to her village where she grew up. It's just, it's all of these.
December in the Eastern Cape.
There are so many differences between us, right? Cultural differences, differences in how we grew up, and truth be told, I'll also be honest, that actually also sometimes leads. Not struggle, but sometimes, misunderstanding, between the two of us, right? Very small things, but yeah, it's actually very funny that, no, it's never been an off-put for me, that we are from a different race. It's actually more been a turn-on for me. Because there's more to learn, more to experience, more to, also for me, there's more for me to grow as a person.
Most recently, we went to the Netherlands and we get to Dominic's parents' house. I'm sweeping the floor and I was about to mop. There's coins at the corner of the door. And so I look at his mom. I was making a joke. I'm like, Danielle, we're going to be rich. And there's so much money. And she was literally holding her stomach laughing at me. She's like, no, Asi, leave the coins. It turns out that ants do not like copper. So if you leave copper coins at the corner by the door, the window, the ants won't enter. Never in my life, and because I would say like I have never heard such a thing. And we've learned to just laugh through it and learn, I guess, at the end of the day. We get a lot of comments on social media referring to our race or referring to our cultural differences. And I'll tell you now, that is probably like the last thought on my mind. It's always been a thing of the person, right? I couldn't care so much about what Dominic looks like or what race he is or which culture he is a part of. It was really just about finding somebody who, like he said, feels like home. And the packaging, it's bonus, you know. Again, this has never been a challenge for me.
One thing which has always really made an impression on me is actually Asi's mom, right? So they're Xhosa. And, you know, in Xhosa culture, it's actually not so normal to, you know, spend time with, you know, the man that you might be interested in, right? Normally you're supposed to pay Lobola and then you go through the whole ritual. I am just so grateful for the fact that she allowed us, you know, to explore each other, right? In a way which met in the middle, right? Where there's a little bit of accepting, you know, my European background and, you know, there's a little bit of accepting Xhosa culture.
And respecting that culture.
So now, of course, when I've paid Lobola, you know, we've gone, you know, we've had the whole ritual. But of course, as we do in, you know, in Europe, it took, you know, a little while before we actually decided to make that step. And for me, that has always just only added to the fact how much I love her, of course, but also how much I really appreciate her. And realizing that for our two cultures to meet, it needed a little bit of leeway, right, from both sides, a little bit of compromise. And I know that actually, you know, a lot of people like in our village, you know, gave her a hard time for that, where it's like, you know, I'm just even more grateful for the fact that she said, well, this is my daughter, and what is more important is that she is happy, and, you know, they're gonna, you know, walk their path on their own way. And then in the end, actually, you know, everything worked out, right? Now I paid Lobola, now she's, you know, officially my wife. Yeah, I don't think that would have been possible had I been, you know, immediately forced, you know, to accept that part of the Xhosa culture.
Forced in inverted commas, right?
Yeah, forced.
The word Lobola probably came up on our first date. I was explaining, I guess we were talking about cultures, and I'm like, yeah, an interesting fact is we still have the dowry system where somebody, you know, purchases a number of cows and then there's marriage that happens. But the nitty-gritties of Lobola, it was also something that I had to learn. You know, I had to also educate myself a little bit. And when he sent the letter, he wasn't even in South Africa because there's also been the distance factor as well. So he got my best friend's partner to deliver the letter to my mom. And this was the wildest news for me because you must imagine, Doe and I come from extremely different cultures, and I would say there's a number of people maybe within your family and maybe perhaps in Europe as well who don't necessarily, let's say, date for 3 years and then we know this is headed towards a marriage. They can easily live their lives together for 30 good years, and marriage is not really seen as something that is necessary as long as two people are happy to be together, right? So that was also something that he revealed in our first conversation, and I was like, oh, that's really cool actually. What are we really after, marriage or the relationship? And I said, in that sense, you know, we'll see where time takes us, because it shouldn't be a pressure thing. It should be more of a, we feel that this is the right next step for both of us, right? And then when the time came, yeah, we did what we could to get information from the internet, from my mom.
I still remember the very first time that she told me about it, and I think I was a little bit, you know, almost shocked, you know, about the fact that is that something that is still around. She actually explained to me, you know, the thing about black tax, right? That actually, you know, black children are very committed, you know, to keep on providing for the family which they have, right? And I would say that is also actually a big difference in Europe. You know, you don't really have that so much. Actually, I feel a much bigger need, right, to also contribute to my mom's life, right? And that is something which she's actually really helped me to realize, right? You know, so yeah, it has really caused a little bit of a mind shift in my head. it became extremely important to me that I also then respect, the part which I know is important for her, right? The Lobola, and how all of that goes. Because my family is from the Netherlands, right? We had to make a little bit of a compromise, right? So instead of having the Lobola in person, we did it, via Zoom, but it was a lot of fun, right? We had all of the men together, and then we had, a celebratory, cheers, and we had our first family picture
on Zoom.
Everyone was dressed up. You should have seen her outfit. She looked absolutely stunning. So I would say the whole experience didn't just teach me something, right, about the fact that it's important to give back to the people which have actually helped you throughout life, but it also brought me closer to her culture, right? And for me, it was just important to honor her mom and her culture in that way.
It hasn't always been, the warm welcome that I received from Doe's family. And I would say then it's not so much of a bad shock, it's a surprisingly incredible shock. I would give you an example to maybe explain. I arrived in the Netherlands for the first time to visit Dominic's family during COVID. I had to quarantine for, I think, 10 days or so. And after the quarantine, it was my birthday, quite a big birthday. I don't want to reveal my age right now. And so I was like, well, we can't travel anywhere. And I already thought, it's not going to be that special. But when COVID passes, no, my husband was like, I have lots of plans. And he planned a birthday party with his family. So we drove to his family's home, adhering to all COVID protocol, of course. But I got there and I tried to give his mom a hug. She was like, no. I was like, okay. Then I moved on to his dad, his stepdad, and he was also like, I was like, whoa, what's wrong with these people? Like, hello. And then they were all laughing because they said, no, so there's a law in the Netherlands that was passed. So if somebody was older, so 60 plus, so the elderly people, you were supposed to keep a bit of a distance from them for their health, right? And I didn't know that. And then, of course, right after quarantine, his parents were the first to run towards me for a hug. And they were just like, yeah, and I felt like, thank goodness, because for a second there, I'm like, what is going on? But no, his parents spoil me so much. And if I ask to help with cooking, she'll give me nuts. I said, you can do that. And I'm just chopping nuts. I'm like, I can do more. There's strength in these arms. But she's just like, I want you to be happy. I want you to enjoy everything. And it's been really cool building relationship with his family, and also just realizing that, now I have two moms and a dad. It's fantastic. Before we went to visit my home village, so where my grandparents are from, Lobola, I trust Doe to, move along with whatever he is going to experience in my village. I kind of try my best to prepare him for, let's say, new situations. So I'd explain to him, I grew up without, running water in a tap. I really try my hardest over the years to kind of tell him what to expect. And obviously we knew that the language barrier might be a thing, but I also come from a home of love and acceptance. So Doe will be sitting with the elders, not in the kraal, but just outside one of the houses in the yard. And they will pull all the English, from days when they used to work in Cape Town. And I'm just like, bless you guys for the effort, for the respect, And this is also what I love about my husband, because he's also just open to the world. And I would say that it's really cool that we are both, let's say, globetrotters, because we found ourselves in the most unique situations in Indonesia, in the Philippines. So I never feel any form of anxiety about taking him anywhere. And we travel quite a lot. So it's really cool to know, like, I have my person. So whatever else we find, it's just an adventure, truly. It's really cool to explore that together, I would say.
Definitely. There have been situations during travels where, I'm just going to name it as it is, where there's been discrimination, right? Discrimination simply because she holds a different passport than I have. So we were traveling back from Italy to Belgium, right? Not leaving the Schengen area. We were already inside. From check-in to the plane, I think she got checked 3 times, right? 3 times where they asked her random check, like, oh, sorry, can us, we're not crossing any, we're not going outside of the Schengen area. So why do you need to check her Schengen, visa? Okay, Matt, that happens once. I understand, it needs to happen. But the fact that it then happens 2 more times, in 2 different occasions, that just made me feel like, okay, guys, that's just too much, right? There I am carrying 2 bags, one of mine and one of hers, and then, suddenly they make a line, you go to the left and, she goes to the right, where I'm like, okay, so I'm assuming you need to check her luggage, but I'm holding her luggage and you're actually not checking her luggage, right? So it's actually about the person. Just because a person has a passport from a different country, why does that then immediately mean that, they need to be treated differently?
In that regard, it's like I don't only experience discrimination when I travel the world, I would say that by the time I left South Africa to start traveling, I had already experienced a bit of discrimination within the country. So that's also something where I'm not judging other countries for. But I will say that we need to ensure that we are doing whatever we can now so that our children can travel one day without these problems. And that's why I would say I continue to smile everywhere I go. I continue to listen to the questions. I continue to provide the information that is required. But I will tell you that it is absolutely exhausting at some point.
When I think about this thing that I like most, actually many things come to mind. I would say the celebration of life is something which I think, people in South Africa just do really well, right? As I said, they come back from the supermarket and then there's a song, which they like, and suddenly they start dancing a little bit, and one person starts singing, and then, there I am in the back, just trying to do some work, and suddenly I hear like, okay, what's going on? I go outside and there's a full-blown party, right? There's like, people dancing, singing, and, they just came back from the supermarket. That I got taught in that way. Treat life as precious as it is, and, you don't need to go to a party in order to create a party, right? You can have a party at home anytime. And dressing up is also something which, I'm very impressed, impressed about, because, of course, we dress up when we go maybe to a wedding, something like that. We need to do the hair, we need to have a proper dress, and pictures, right? Pictures need to be taken of everything. So it's just nice to experience the joy of life and the fact that life is celebrated to such an extent, right? They're really good at preparing the meat. It's just so nice and tender, and I love the way they prepare it. To just get introduced, to the fact that, hey, we want to eat this cow tonight. Okay, then we need to slaughter this cow now, right? And we need to chop it up, we need to take the skin off. If I also join in, the whole process of preparing the meat, 100%, right? I'm holding a cow while they're chopping it up. I've been told the men don't really like in the village because apparently, I didn't know, but apparently I was doing women's tasks. I was just, there helping there, and then, helping there, then helping the man.
He was doing too much.
Submerging myself in the culture in every way, because I think that is the only way to truly understand also where those things come from, right? So actually it was also very eye-opening and actually very beautiful for me to see how the meat gets treated here, right? How they use every single aspect of it, right? How they are cleaning the intestines, how they're, chopping up the skull, and every piece gets used. It's like, it's fascinating for me to see, because for me, it shows respect for the animal that you kill, right? We're gonna kill this animal and we're gonna use every single piece of it because, every piece is useful. The fact that they have such tight communities, the fact that, when stuff needs to happen, they all contribute, they're all there, working towards a common goal. But I think that is also something which is just, personally to me, the fact that there's such a separation between what men are supposed to do and what women are supposed to do. I just don't see those things, right? If men can help there, then men help there. If women can help there, then, then they can help there. But I also understand that it's just, the way, they grew up, right? I mean, it also comes from, I would say, a necessity, right? So maybe men were stronger, so they would handle the animals, right? And it's not that a woman can't do it. It's just something which, evolved. The one thing which still for me, I don't think I would ever send my kids to the bush, to get circumcised. That is something which, for me, I understand, the cultural part of it, but what an impact it also has on the boys' lives, right? Because if you haven't gone to the bush, then you're not really a man, right? It has such a strong impact. So I would say that is the main thing that really gave me a little bit of a culture shock. My definition of love is another person is not perfect, that you're always willing to accept those imperfections, right? That you're willing to work towards happiness, even though, there might be ups and downs, it's all about willing to water the plant every day. You know, the plant might not grow that day, but you know, it still needs water that day. Love is also about supporting each other, right? So, you know, my wife is currently in the process of, you know, setting up a community that actually revolves around love and light. I will be there to support her, you know, along the way, you know, in any way that I can.
I am somebody who believes in leading with love. And I think when we lead with love, we are able to focus less on the things that make us different and a bit more on the things that actually link us as human beings across the world. And you're able to understand there's so much actually that we have in common. And if we just actually stop focusing on the differences and appreciating each other's differences, we might even find more common ground. And I think that's been a really cool thing for our relationship, because it's again that whatever makes us different is not really a reason to fight, but it's rather an opportunity to learn and maybe just love the other person even more, because what the heck?